G'day, it's Pete here, and today I wanted to talk about how to evaluate a bridge hand. So I'm going to do this in sort of three parts. I'm going to cover the basics first, and then a few little adjustments, and then finally a technique I really like to use to try and find the right spot in an auction. Anyway, first of all, how do you tell how good it is? Most people use high card points. So what they like to do is they want to add 4 for an ace, 3 for a king, 2 for a queen, and 1 for a jack. And this tells you how many points your hand is worth. Now, this is pretty much universally used for judging how good a hand is, but it's not everything that there is to judge a hand by. Other factors include length points or shortage points. So what I like to do is before I find a fit, I count length points, and after I find a fit, I want to count shortage points. You never want to count both of them. You want to count one or the other. And the general idea is before you find a fit, you're likely to end up in no trumps as a possibility. And if you've got a 5 or a 6 card suit in no trumps, this is a really powerful thing and actually makes your hand better. Whereas if you find a trump suit, then most of the time you want to do some roughing or trumping where you've got shortages and you can cross trump the hand. So what I like to do is count 1 point for a 5 card suit and 2 points for a 6 card suit before I find a fit. Now this is length points, so I get my high card points and my length points, and I call that my total points. During the bidding, once we've found a fit and we're going to actually play in the trump suit, then I'll switch over and count shortage points. So you want to reevaluate your hand during the auction. So once you've found a fit, you can then stop counting your length points, but instead count your shortage points. So to do this, what I like to do is count 5 points if I've got a void, 3 if I've got a singleton, and 1 if I've got a doubleton. But this is more of an aggressive approach of evaluating a hand based on shortage points, and it's only really useful if you've got a good fit. If you've only got just an 8 card fit, then maybe you want to just count 3 for a void, 2 for a singleton, and 1 for a doubleton. So there are a couple of different options that you can do, but you want to judge how good is my fit, but usually I lean towards counting 5 for the void, 3 for a singleton, and 1 for a doubleton. So this is the basics of how we evaluate a hand, so let's jump straight in and see what we can actually do with these. So on this hand, if we wanted to count our points, we've got 4 for the ace, 3 for a king, 2 for a queen, and 2 for another queen. So this hand is worth 11 points. We have no length points and we have no shortage points. So we haven't found a fit yet, but we wouldn't be able to adjust this either way. So this hand is worth 11 points. If we bring up another one, this one has 3 aces, so 12 points for the aces and 3 for the king. So this hand would be worth 15 points. And then also, we have no length points, but after we find a fit, so if we found a fit in spades, say the auction went 1 spade, not that it would go like this, but if we found a fit in spades, then we could count our doubleton and add an extra point for that. This one here, we have 6 points in spades, 4 for the ace, 2 for the queen, 1 point for the jack, 1 point for the other jack, so this hand is worth 8 high card points. But then it's also got length points, where I'd count 2 length points for having the 6 card suit. So here's like a few different ways that you can see how you can count your high card points here, or your total points. So I like to count my high card points and then add it to my length points. So once I've done that, that's my total points. And then once I find a fit, I reevaluate. I stop counting my length points and then count my shortage points instead. So here, if I'd found a fit later in the auction, I would stop counting the 2 points for length. I would instead say I got 6 high card points in spades, 1 in hearts, 1 in diamonds is 8. But then count my shortage points, where I get 1 point for a doubleton and 3 points for a singleton. But here's where it gets tricky. You don't really want to double dip. A singleton jack isn't worth the 1 point for the jack and the 3 points for the singleton. So I would tend to just swap over and just count what's more valuable. So I would just count this as 3 points for a singleton here and say this hand's worth is 7 high card points and 3 for the singleton, 1 for the doubleton. So that's 11 high card points, 11 total points at that stage. So this is the general way that I like to evaluate hands, where you count your high card points with 4 for an ace, 3 for a king, 2 for a queen, 1 for a jack. And then before you find a fit, you want to count your length points, where you get 1 point if you got a 5 card suit, 2 points if you got a 6 card suit. And then afterwards, if you do find a fit, you stop counting your length points and switch over to shortage points. So this is how you can evaluate hands in a pretty basic way. Now, there are more adjustments that can be done, so let's look at what other adjustments that you can actually make. So first of all, high card points aren't precise on 4 for an ace 3. That's how people approximate them. A slight different approach might be aces and kings are worth slightly more than 4 points. Queens and jacks are worth slightly less than their 2 and 1 points respectively. So aces approximately 4.3. I've seen various numbers on what people actually think they're worth, and kings 3.3, and queens like 1.7, and jacks 0.7. So basically queens and jacks are overvalued in the way that we actually count them, and aces and kings are undervalued, and also tens are worth some value as well. So basically, instead of getting a calculator out, what I do is I count my high card points the usual way that I would. But then I see if I've got lots of aces, kings, and tens, then my hand is better than what I'm already counting it for. So if I'm on a borderline decision and I see that I've got lots of aces, kings, and tens, I'll upgrade my hand. Whereas if I've got lots of queens and jacks, then I know my hand's already overvalued for what it is, and then I'll sort of backtrack a bit and downvalue it a bit. So if you've got lots of aces and kings, that's a really good thing. If you've got lots of queens and jacks, that's not a good thing. You don't need to work out precisely how much your hand is valued using those numbers, but it is something that you can do. So realizing a general pattern is that lots of aces and kings are good, whereas lots of queens and jacks are not. Another thing that you want to pay attention to is intermediates. So here we've started talking about tens actually having some value. Nines also have some value as well, and eights a little bit. So if your hand has lots and lots of intermediates, then your hand is better. So you can look for a sort of scattering of high intermediates, and if you've got intermediates in your long suits, then they're better placed and your hand would be a bit better. The final thing that you want to sort of look for is the location of your points. So where are your high card points? What you want is you generally want your high card points to be connected together. So if you've got a jack just by itself, it's not as good as if that jack was supported by an ace, king, or queen. So you want your high card points together, and you also want your high card points to be in your long suits. When they're in your short suits, they're not nearly as valuable. So they're the two things about location that you want. You want your high card points in your long suits. You also want your high card points connected together rather than just scattered points. So let's look at a few more examples and see how this works. So here's this previous example, and what we've got is we've got the ace, queen of spades. So this queen is connected to an ace, which is really good. Whereas this jack is not connected to anything, and this jack's not connected to anything as well. But this jack of hearts is much better than the jack of diamonds, and this is because the jack of hearts is in one of our long suits, and the jack of diamonds is in a short, so it's not nearly as valuable. But let's bring up another hand. Okay, so here, this is a 6 high card point hand, but it is pretty bad. So let's look at why. Firstly, all of our points are scattered. We don't have any connecting honors. These honors are not touching each other at all, whereas like if you moved the king of spades into clubs, then you would have the king jack of clubs together, and that would make your jack better because it's with a supporting honor. Whereas these scattered points make this hand a pretty poor 6 count. It does have some intermediates. It's got some 8s, some 9s, but not enough to be really noticeable to bring up that point value a bit. Another deterrent is the fact that your points are mainly in your short suit. We've got 3 points in a 3-card suit and 2 points in our doubleton, whereas only 1 point in our 2 4-card suits. So all in all, this is a pretty bad 6 count. Okay, what about this one? So here we've got 11 high card points, 2 aces and a king, and this is a reasonable 11 count. Now, all the points are scattered, which is a deterrent, and it doesn't have that many intermediates. It's got 1, 9, but what it does have is it's all in aces and kings. So it's got 2 aces and 1 king, and what we noticed is aces and kings are currently undervalued in the 4, 3, 2, 1 point scale. So this hand is pretty reasonable because it's only made up of aces and kings. All the other factors about this are not great. It's got more points in its shortages than in its long suits. But it does have 4 points in its long suits, and it does have a 9, so it's getting close to having some intermediates there. Okay, what about this one? So here we've got a 4-4-1 hand shape, and we've got 16 high card points, 5 in spades, 7 in hearts, and 4 in diamonds. And this is mainly made out of aces and kings. So that's firstly a good thing. Secondly, it's got the 10 of hearts, which is a good intermediate, so that's good. So aces, kings, and 10s are all currently undervalued. Jacks are overvalued, but other than that, it's pretty good. Other things, we've got some supporting honours. So our king's connected to an ace, our jack's connected to an ace as well. So both of these lower honours are better because they're touching other honours. And one direct way that you can see how this is actually useful, why our connected honours are good. If we didn't have the ace of hearts, then our chance of winning a trick with the king of hearts would be sort of 50-50. We could lead towards the king of hearts and hope east has the ace. Whereas if west has it, we're not going to win it. But when we've got the ace, this king is 100% to win the trick. So because we've got the ace of hearts, this king is guaranteed to be winning a trick. And that's why connected honours are better. It sort of promotes all your lower ones. So this is a pretty good 4-4-1 shape. We got 16 high card points, and if we find a fit, we can count 3 for our singleton. But this sort of brings us on to the next thing that I wanted to mention, which is some good hand shapes and some bad hand shapes. Now, 4-4-1s are not a great hand shape in general, largely because they're really, really awkward to bid. Most bidding systems do not have a good way to describe 4-4-1 hand shapes. So it's awkward to try and bid. When you actually get to the play of it, it's not too bad because you've got a shortage, but it's not a particularly great hand either. So it's on the sort of bad end of hand shapes. But a really, really bad hand shape is a 4-3-3 hand shape. If you have a 4-3-3 hand shape, that is the worst hand shape that you can have. And some people downgrade an entire point for having a 4-3-3. I don't go as far as that, but when I see a 4-3-3, I definitely lean towards downgrading my hand. Whereas some good hand shapes include 5-4-3-1s, 6-4s, 7-4s, 5-5s. Lots of those unbalanced hands are really good hand shapes. If you've got 10 cards in 2 suits, your hand is usually really, really powerful, and it's going to play better than what the points would actually suggest. So if you've got those hand shapes, then they're really strong, and you want to be enthused about bidding those. So let's bring up another hand and see how we go. Alright, so looking at this one, we've got a 6-4 shape, and talking about good hand shapes, this hand shape is fantastic. 6-4s are one of my favourite hand shapes. The playing strength of these are really, really good. What else about this? So we've got 14 high card points, and we've got lots of points in our shortages. We've got 6 points in our shortages and 8 in our long suits. It's okay, but it's not a great distribution of the points here. We don't have that many intermediates, but we do have a 9 of spades, the 8 of clubs, so something. And most of our points are in aces and kings. We've got 7 in spades, 4 in hearts, in aces and kings. But we've got a few queens and jacks, and these are not supported honours. The queens and jacks are really powerful when you connect them to higher honours, so it's not great. So this is a moderate 6-4 shape, but I love 6-4 hand shapes. And the main thing about 6-4 hand shapes are when you find a primary fit, or if you've got a 5-5 shape, you find a primary fit. So what I'm talking about is you might find a fit in diamonds if partner's got 6 diamonds or something like that, and that will make this hand not play particularly well. You don't want to be very aggressive when you find those fits. But let's say we found a fit in clubs. Now this hand is really fantastic because we'd be able to draw trumps and then set up spades and throw away all the rest of the tricks. So when you've got a 6-4 shape or a 5-5 shape and you find a good fit in one of your long suits, then the hand will play like a dream. When you find a fit in like your shorter suit, like queen, doubleton, diamonds here, if we found a diamond fit, this hand won't play as well because we might be able to draw trumps, but then entries back to this hand are pretty limited. We also might have a lot of club losers. So this hand is a lot worse if we find a diamond fit than if we found a club fit. Okay, so this one we've got 10 high card points. And this is a reasonable 10 high card points. The biggest deterrent for me is no aces. I am a huge fan of aces. So here, not having an ace is like a bit of a drawback. But we do have a couple of kings, and everything else about this hand is reasonable. So we've got a few queens and jacks, but what we do have is some intermediates. This 10 of spades is fantastic, which is really good. All of our points are in our long suits. We've got no points in our doubleton, so that's a really strong hand. What else is that we've got connected on? This jack of hearts is connected to the king, which is really good. So the location of our points is good. The connectivity of our points is good. It's sort of split between queens and jacks and kings, which is not great. But it's not a 4-3-3 hand shape as well, which is the really dregs of the hand shape, so pretty good. Just got a question. Do I count -1 point for having 0 aces? I don't go as far as that, but whenever I see a hand without aces but a decent amount of points, I am pretty negative in general. Like, I'm a huge fan of aces, so when I see aces, I like to be more optimistic and be aggressive on the hand. When I see no aces, that's the first thing that sort of strikes me about a hand, and I'm more pessimistic about it. And then I have to try and see are there other good features that I can find about it. But I wouldn't take away a whole point for not having aces. But I'm definitely keen to hold back a bit. So there were a few different hands, and just looking through how we can actually evaluate them. The final thing I wanted to talk about hand evaluation is how I like to actually bid hands, which are distributional, and this is using a technique called hand visualization, or basically playing the hand out in my head. So rather than going, I need 33 points for slam, which is a good baseline to go on, is you want to go, what specific cards do I actually need partner to have? And then can I come up with a perfect minimum for them to actually bid hands? So let's see if we can bring up a hand and talk about it. It works better for unbalanced hands. And talking about bad hands, this one is terrible. This is a 4-3-3 6 count, no points in our long suit, all queens which are already overrated, and they are not connected at all. So this is a truly bad 6 count. Okay, this one here we've got 14 high card points, 5-4-3-1, which was a pretty good shape, and we've got all of our points in our long suits, and we've got some intermediates. We've got the 10 of spades, which is also good. So this hand is really, really strong. So let's say that we started bidding this hand, and say it went 1 spade, pass, and say partner bid 3 spades, invitational. Okay, how interested in slam are we opposite this? So if partner's got 10 to 12 points and a fit in spades. So what I like to do is think, what do I actually need to make slam? Rather than going, I've got 14 high card points and 3 for a singleton, which is 17, and then all the adjustments I could ever make this positive, I would say this hand's worth about 18 points, which would then mean we've got 28 to 30 points, which would not be interested in slam. However, let's try and visualize what do we actually need partner to have to make slam. So if we wanted to make slam, if partner had, say, the ace of diamonds, the ace of clubs, a doubleton heart, and king to 4 spades, can we make slam opposite that? So that would be 11 high card points, and they would have the ace of diamonds covering our diamond. They had the ace of clubs, so we've got the ace king, but we've got a deep club loser. I said they had a doubleton heart, which meant that we've got 1 heart loser, but then I'd be able to ruff the other 2. And king of spades would have no spade losers. So opposite that, we can't make slam, but we could probably make 11 tricks opposite a nice 11 count. So what you can see is slam's probably just out of reach on this hand if partner bid like this, but it's not impossible to be making slam in this situation. If instead they bid something else, let's say you play splinters or other conventions, and some partner said, I've got enough points to play in game, and I've got a singleton heart. Now, if you don't play splinters, don't worry. But just talking about hand visualization, splinters are a great convention for helping you with hand visualization. So what I mean by this bid is partner's got enough points to play in 4 spades, so they've got 4 card spade support, and they've got a singleton heart and about 10 to 14 high card points. So can we give them a 10 count or an 11 count that can make slam here? So again, if we say partner had the ace of clubs, the ace of diamonds, and the king of spades, but had a singleton heart here, now we could actually make slam. We could ruff 3 of our hearts, potentially, and we would have the ace of clubs, and the ace of diamonds, and the king of spades, so we would be able to just lose our 3rd round club. So here, slam's a lot closer once you start visualizing partner's hand, if they had a hand like that. So with bidding and trying to bid to slam, usually, when you've got distributional hands, what I like to do, rather than just count high card points, is to think, what specific cards do I think my partner may have? And how would the hand go? So basically, I'm playing the hand in my head first, and then seeing how it would actually go. How can I get rid of my losers? And can I make enough tricks? Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this one. We're talking about hand evaluation. We talked about the basics, part 1, high card points, where we count 4 for an ace, 3 for a king, 2 for a queen, 1 for a jack. We talked about length points, which you count before you find a fit, and shortage points after you find a fit. So here we would count 1 point for a 5 card suit on this hand, but as soon as partner raises spades, we stop counting that and we count our singleton. And we mentioned it's dangerous to count both your shortage points and your high card points if it's a singleton honor. So if I had singleton queen of diamonds, I tend to just choose whatever's the higher valued thing. It's not worth 2 for the queen and 3 for the singleton. And the way you can sort of justify this is with all the adjustments we talked about, honors in short suits aren't great. Honors that aren't connected to the other ones are not great. So for both of those reasons, you can downgrade that. We also talked about the adjustments where aces, kings, and tens are all underrated in the way that we count them. So it's about like 4.3 for an ace, and kings are 3.3, whereas queens and jacks, they're actually already overrated. A queen isn't worth 2 points. A jack isn't worth 1 point, but it's pretty close. So basically I look for a hand, and if it's full of queens and jacks, then I'll downgrade it. If it's got lots of aces and kings, then I'll upgrade it. Other things to look for are intermediates in your long suits. So 10s, 9s, 8s in your long suits are pretty good. Also, we want to look at the location of our points. We want our points to be in our long suits, and we want them to be clustered together. A queen that's connected to a higher honor is much better than a queen by itself. So those factors make hands stronger. Bad hand shapes include 4 triple threes. Triple 4 ones are also awkward to bid and play. And another bad factor is not having any aces. Aces are fantastic. If you've got aces, like your hand. If you don't have aces, you should be a little bit more hesitant. Good hand shapes. Anytime you've got 10 cards in 2 suits, that's a fantastic hand shape. Anything more than that is really strong. And what you want to look for on those is, do you have a primary fit in your long suits? If you find a fit in one of your shorter suits, your hand is nowhere near as powerful. And then finally, we wanted to talk about hand visualization, where we're talking about when we're trying to bid a hand. Think of the specific cards you want your partner to have, and then just try and play the hand out in your head before you bid, because you might realize where you can actually get to. This is common when you're bidding to slams, after partner preamps, or if your partner makes some descriptive bid. If you've got conventions which highlight a bit about their shape or things like that, you might be able to really bid to some aggressive places, or realize how bad the hand is actually getting and sort of pull back a bit. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this lesson on